Advances in medical science are moving so fast that sometimes important ethical concerns get pushed aside or ignored. Tonight we'll talk about the desperate need to develop cutting-edge medical research that saves lives without taking them. So please stay with us. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm Father Mitch Pacwa, and welcome to EWTN Live, where we bring you guests from all over the world. Our guest tonight is a Catholic doctor who right now lives in Kalamazoo, Michigan, specializing in neonatology and perinatal medicine. We'll talk about what that means in a minute. But basically, she's caring for sick babies whose parents are desperately waiting on a cure that sometimes seems just over the horizon of medical research, but those medical advances don't come without challenging ethical questions. To help us sort out this delicate balancing act, please welcome a good friend of mine, Dr. Robin Pierucci.
Dr. Robin.
Now, I have to be upfront about this. Dr. Robin was my student 30 years ago, and she was in my Introduction to the Old Testament class. She had a few questions and comments along the way, but we're not here to talk about Old Testament so much, but if you ever get a chance to meet her, she has lots of stories, as do I. And but now you've grown up so fast, and you're a doctor, and you're doing neonatology, what is neonatology and perinatal mean?
Well, neonatologists are pediatricians who have continued their education and gone on to specialize in caring for critically sick babies. I would say most of the population of a neonatal intensive care unit are premature babies, although sometimes they're just babies that are too sick for the pediatricians to feel comfortable with.
Sure. And by premature, what's the earliest, the youngest child that you've treated?
Well, it's so complicated now to say where exactly is the edge of viability.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even define it just by gestational age anymore because there's so many other tools that we now have.
Sure.
But, that said, around 23 weeks is
23
kind of the
weeks.
edge. Term is 37 to 40 weeks.
Right.
So literally kind of half-baked. There are some people who are...
That's what you said about my ideas in class.
I was right, some of them. But some of these kiddos, some people are actually trying to resuscitate babies who are 22 weeks. Others argue that, gosh, the concern is, do we do more harm to those little ones than help them?
But 23 weeks is...
It's right on the edge there.
Right on the edge of viability. And, you've told me lots of stories over the years and asked for lots of prayers for these kids. And it always strikes me how at 23 weeks, they have a very defined personality already. Each one is very different from the others, right?
It amazes me, as well as the nursing staff who cares for them. When they're that little, it is true, they don't look like what they will, when they're a little bit older and then even as a term baby. But I'll tell you, they'll get angry and slap you. They do not, if you're putting in an IV or they're not liking what you're doing with whatever's on their face, trying to help them with breathing, they have an opinion. that comes intact. So it
See,
is
now that sounds like you in class, but that's another.
true.
Now, here's where we want to go. We're not so much going to talk about neonatology, but let's just let folks know, some of the background.
Sure.
There is another area of research that you've become interested in. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, while I was doing my neonatal fellowship, I also got interested in ethics, bioethics specifically. And something that has recently come up is this area of chimeric research.
What does chimeric mean?
This, in the most broad sense, it's the combining of two species, two different organisms. And that can happen in really kind of two big categories. One is a hybrid, meaning you breed two animals that are not the same, like a horse and a mule, and you get a donkey.
No, I mean a horse and a donkey,
Correct,
and you get a mule. Yes.
Yep. Okay. Obviously, I'm not a
Can't
veterinarian.
breed, you can't
not the other way.
breed or a farmer.
No.
You can't breed.
Great.
Can't breed mules.
But
but you can
correct.
breed donkeys with horses.
Right.
And usually a jackass with a mare, a horse mare.
Right.
And you get a mule.
And that's a hybrid. It is combining. But what's interesting is with that, first of all, that happens within the mare, within the horse. So it's not taking cells outside and then manipulating them, which is what happens in this other branch of chimeric research, where you're really trying to force together species that don't necessarily, you couldn't just breed. Or in the case of medicine, you're trying to introduce often a human protein, something that helps us with the disease process down the line so that we can test new drugs. And there is some ethical good things happening.
And just so folks understand, some of this is human and ape, monkeys.
Well, they try not to, that's one of the things that they're trying to kind of keep a lid on because of how it is. But there's quite a bit going on in the lab with mice, rodents, pigs, sheep, other things.
Yeah, because I've done some of the research, some reading, and they were trying some, monkey and human, but it's much more common with pigs, mice, rats, hamsters, and these various other animals.
But it's an important thing to bring up is where do we limit this? And that's, part of how we got to talking about this is there's the government, the NIH, the National Institute of Health, which really kind of is the governing body for research, which, like I say, they do some amazing things. But they recently asked, gosh, I think we should review the protocols and maybe we should fund even more of this chimeric research and back off of some of the restrictions that we had initially placed on that. And that immediately needs to raise a red flag, because then you get to ask, well, if it was a restriction before, maybe on a moral basis, and it was true then, did it become untrue now?
Right. And just so that folks in the audience, this is something that we've talked about over the years. Some of your own family had died in the concentration camps during World War II. You're converted from Judaism. A number of your family members were taken to the camps where evil research was being attempted on mostly Jewish people and some of the Slavic people. And it was evil experiments. Not all experiments are good science or good morals. And there was some of the worst of human history were done by doctors, Dr. Mengele and other medical doctors, who ignored ethics completely and did great evil and harm. And it's not that this is on that level, but that is the warning bell for all of us to say, wait a second, it's not anything is possible. Moral questions must be raised along with serious research being done. Wouldn't that be correct?
Well, absolutely. And what's so important about raising the ethical issue before the research gets farther along is not meant to stifle the research.
Right.
It's meant to actually make it better.
Right.
How do I make it safer? How do I ensure that everyone involved in the research, as well as the recipients of it down the line, are safe? So it's, when people kind of say, wait a minute, or they'll say things like the church is against research. Absolutely,
Not at all.
no, not at all. Please, I want to make it better. And asking those questions on the front end just makes the science better.
Yeah. It's better, and because our concern is to promote good science and human dignity at the same time.
Absolutely.
That's the thing. And, this is a real issue because, for instance, right here in Alabama, University of Alabama in Birmingham, which is the largest employer in the state. It's a huge, complex, fantastic, research institution. It really is terrific. They just received $19.5 million to do this study of chimeras for xenotransplantation. What is xenotransplantation?
Once again, lots of big
Greek words.
scientific words have made it, are kind of coming in. And basically, whether it's chimeric or xenotransplant, it's all about combining humans and animals. Specifically, in this case, we're talking about organ transplant.
Right. For here, they're trying to get a viable kidney
Right.
raised inside a pig for human use.
Right. And, honestly, if it's your loved one who's in a tragic car accident and you're on life support and you're waiting for, I just wish a liver, and you don't wish anything bad on someone else, but you sure wish you had the opportunity to have this organ. So, this is something that we don't have a big enough supply.
Right.
And the other truth is, but even if you get one, it doesn't mean it's going to take.
Right.
Because of your body rejects something that's foreign. Your body recognizes that.
That's the way the body is made,
Of course.
to reject foreign objects.
Right, to keep it safe.
Yeah, it assumes this is going to cause an infection,
Right.
so it fights against it with the immune system.
Right, so wouldn't it be a wonderful thing to be able to have an organ that we could maybe produce? Oh, I know what the concoction, the recipe is, if you will, to make a liver, to make whether it's cornea replacements, heart valves, kidneys. What if we could
Lungs.
do lungs? What if we could do that? And gosh, if it was human as opposed to animal, better chance that of not being rejected. And what if it was even from your own early tissue that you could then grow in a lab and know how to put that in? So these are correct, good questions to be able to ask. How you get there is a different discussion.
Right, and there are presently about 120,000 people waiting for organ transplants.
Right.
Of different kinds, all
Yeah.
different kinds. Eyes would be common, but over 6,500 people die waiting for an organ because it's just not
Well, and there's
there.
a whole black market. There's a whole underside of what goes on. So,
Yeah, some of which is associated with murder as well.
Right.
Kidnapping and murder.
Right.
So it's the underside of that, again, is dealing with ethical questions. People get kidnapped and killed for their organs, for people who have no ethics and a lot of money.
right.
So having ability is not enough. Now, you have to have the ethical concerns as well.
Right.
What are the ethical questions that come with these chimeras, with this various ways of combining human and animal tissue?
Well, in particular, you're putting cells together at their earliest stage. We're talking about what we call the embryonic period, when literally you have a fertilized egg. That's what an embryo is. And it's gone through a couple of cell divisions. Blastocysts was what it's called in the literature. So you've got a couple of cell layers, but they're talking now about putting human cells into this very, very early divisions. Here's the risk. If we're putting it in that early, we could differentiate into everything. That includes now the nervous system. And right now, they had tried to say, well, we got to be careful about not incorporating human cells into what's going to become an animal brain.
See, that's the thing. When you say nervous system,
Right.
it's not only the nerve endings in your fingers.
Oh, no.
That includes the brain.
Right. And even, and it's going to be hard to know, do you have to wait until you see an actual anatomic change in the brain? Or is there still going to be some functional capacity to some degree? And we don't know this.
Yeah.
And, like I said, now I know researchers in studying things like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's who would love to be able to help people. And if you
Yes.
could, have models that are more closely resembling a human and actual human cells now to be able to see what's going on, the potential for cures is there.
So
but at the
just-
expense of what?
Well, and one of the issues is it's not only they're looking for transplants, they're also looking to study
Right.
some of these changes that are affected by human cells so they can see, well, what can we learn from that without killing a human being to do the research? If it's in say a pig brain or a mouse brain or something, then you say, well, we don't worry about that as much.
Well, and that's the caution you just said, without killing a human being.
Right.
And therein also lies a problem. The cell that they're taking, they want a cell, they have to put in that can be called the big fancy word is pluripotent, a cell that can differentiate into anything. So you go to the earliest possible cell. That means, go back to what an embryo is. It's a fertilized egg. It's a human being, complete with the DNA, the blueprint for your life. It's all there.
Yeah, you don't, if you're left, once an egg is fertilized, no other DNA will develop.
No.
All of the pairs of DNA and then the variations within those, that's yours for the rest of your life, and it'll be in all your cells.
And think of it this way. Remember, if this happens within mom, that egg is instantly a foreigner. It has to travel to her uterus to be kept safe from her own immune system from recognizing it, because otherwise it would be gotten rid of.
So the uterus is a hiding place?
It is. And so is the surrounding thing, the zona pellucida. Let's say there's the baby parts within the middle of it, and then surrounding it, you make the placenta and all the parts that there's a barrier. So left undisturbed, what is now a single cell, when it's not touched, it develops into a human being every time. It doesn't become a tree. It doesn't develop gills. It doesn't become a platypus. It's intact, a separate person at fertilization. So if you take this separate person, whether we can recognize it with our own eyes or not, you're destroying it to say, I'm going to take out the nucleus, the part with the DNA. I'm going to put that in this other animal cell in an attempt to grow these human organs. Wait a minute. To do that, you've just killed that embryo, that human being. And see, when we start playing with words, embryo, zygote, first of all, they mean the same thing. It's an emotional distancing from what's a very separate, perfectly made person. We just haven't seen the transformation.
And see, that's one of the other things too. The embryo and zygote are not part of the mother's body.
Right.
It's a separate a system distinct from the mother, but living within her protective womb.
Right.
And so to say that, this is not belong to anybody, right?
Yes, yes. You know,
Any more than you can say any child belongs. And this was our argument against slavery
Right.
for the last, 600 years in the Catholic Church. We argued, as a matter of fact, longer than that. The rejection of slavery was something that went, back to the early centuries of the church, because humans have their own dignity
yes.
and on their own, and you can't buy, sell, or give away or take from them without their permission.
Well, like I say, and in this case, without doing permanent terminal harm.
Yeah.
Like I say, it's so easy to when people say, "Oh, it's just tissue." Like tissue is what you blow your nose in. This is not a human being. But something when it's hard to wrap your mind around the fact that this egg is a person, I like to do what I call the math of life backwards. Imagine your grandma. Remember what she looked like in her wedding picture? It's grandma, and if you look at it, okay, I get it, it's the same person. But if you look at her as a child, okay, now you're pushing it. Now you might not, and you can't necessarily recognize her. I wonder what grandma looked like as an embryo.
Yeah.
It's all there.
Yeah.
And that's what's so stunning.
Yeah, she didn't grow any new DNA
No.
in her old age.
No, she didn't.
She didn't lose any. She just
No. Things can happen to DNA, it needs to repair, but that's why we come with actually intrinsic things to help do that. But once again, the blueprint for how you develop, that's what you get from the beginning.
Yeah. And so one of the ethical questions then has to do with protecting the dignity of this person who's at an embryonic stage.
Right.
You can't see eyes.
Nope.
You can't touch a hand. They're not there yet in a way that you can see. But what will develop into that hand, eyes, brain, heart is all there.
Who puts it beautifully, Saint John Paul II, when he said, at the embryonic stage, it doesn't even have the ability to cry out, to yell for help. Talk about more vulnerable even than a baby who could at least yell at you to say, ow. These little guys don't have that privilege.
Right.
So if we don't speak for them, there's just silence.
Right. And but for us to think about what is there and to say, I can't steal that by killing this embryo who is continuing to grow into this personal dignity. I don't have a right to take from them. Whereas if I want to give you some of my stem cells, you can ask me.
Well, two things. First of all, so adult stem cells work. There has been wonderful science using adult stem cells. You can get stem cells. Stem cell just means it can develop into these other different kinds of organs.
Yeah, it's undifferentiated.
Correct. We actually have that in a lot of different organ systems as adults. And the research has used them to some amazing results. But I want to go back to what you said about human dignity. One of the things that they're doing now is kind of picking and choosing. What if I want a child that doesn't have a disease that I carry? Isn't that a good thing? And I think we have to be so careful about, no one wants to see suffering that doesn't have to be. But destroying someone because they're imperfect, that's not okay. Caring for people who have what we call a handicap, or they're going to develop differently, or their lifespan will be different. Now we need to step back and say, wait a minute, the value of a person isn't determined by how perfect you think they are. there's some value judgments that get placed, and in our society, there's ethicists who talk about, if you can't think, you're really not worth so much. And I would really challenge that a valuable life is not about the degree to which you can cognitively solve a math equation. Did you love someone? What did you bring? What joy into this universe?
The ethicist Peter Singer.
Yes, is the most infamous.
Yeah, because he thinks that you should be able to kill a child,
yes,
even for a couple, 3 years after birth.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure how high he would go, but he says that if they can't think,
right,
then they don't yet have the right to live. Thinking gives it to them.
Yeah.
And
I know, it's scary. It's interesting, we in the celebration of the Holy Innocents, there was a marvelous quote I read from a physician who was saying, you know what? Those innocents did something very important. They never offended God. My ability to think, trust me, I've offended him. It's a little overrated some days. And think about kids who we sometimes marginalize, trisomy 21, Down syndrome kiddos, who are some of the most beautiful, sweetest children on this planet. Their value is not less because of their IQ. That is missing out the value of a human.
I'll never forget a sociological study I read back about when I was a novice, so it'd be about 68, 69, and it mentioned that societies that care for physically or mentally challenged children and raise them well tend to become more gentle societies, while societies that destroy them are more violent. Rome and Sparta were two of the examples that they used for these violent societies. And it may well be that their role and one of the great gifts they are is to make the rest of us more gentle.
I think children
and less self-important.
Children in general, they do that. They remind us to, get over your bad self and giggle, whether it's rolling down a hill or just that laughter that is so infectious. That is that's what we absolutely connect with childhood.
Right.
That has real value.
And this is where we have to then ask these questions about right and wrong of destroying an embryo in order to include that with an animal embryo in order to help develop organs or do research.
Right.
And that's an important element. Now, I'm afraid we have to take a break. So we'll come back in a couple of minutes because this is some important discussions. We'll be back with some of your questions and comments as well as our studio audience. So please stay with us. Welcome back. First of all, we want to invite you to come down here and join us on a pilgrimage. If you can do so, please call our pilgrimage department at 205-271-2966 or go to the website ewtn.com. They will give you information about scheduling of masses, programs where you can participate, and places to stay, directions to get up to Hanceville and visit there. Love to have you come down here. You ready?
Absolutely.
Let's start off with a caller. Hello, John.
Hello, Father.
Hey, what's going on?
Oh, it's just very warm. Who knows if global warming is real? I'm only kidding.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's you're saying it is.
For our dear doctor friend, I wanted to ask her if she works in a Catholic hospital and if she had noticed how the morality is in hospitals that are not Catholic.
All right. So do you see some of the ethical questions, a question of morality, being dealt with differently in Catholic versus non-Catholic hospitals?
You know, I don't work in a Catholic hospital, and from what I know from friends across the country, you know, what the name is across the top of the hospital is a name. It's about what people inside choose to do. And there certainly are Catholic hospitals where they very intentionally uphold the magisterium. There are some Catholic hospitals that have employees that really don't care that much, and vice versa. My hospital is not Catholic, but I've been so impressed with the ethics and morality of the compatriots I get the privilege of working with. And yeah, there's stuff that we argue about and get right and wrong, and it's a dynamic process. So, you know, the question is a Catholic hospital automatically practicing more ethically than a non-Catholic? I'd have to say no. You need to check out who's doing what in any individual hospital. Right. Certainly you would hope that a hospital that has Catholic in its name is, you know, practicing according to the magisterium.
Right. All right. Let's take another question. Ma'am, where are you from?
Maryland.
Maryland. And we talked before the show. I didn't realize that you'd be in the audience, but what do you do in Maryland?
So I'm a professor at the University of Maryland, the School of Medicine.
In the school. So this is a great blessing to have you in our audience. And I know you have a couple of students with you. What would be your question?
So maybe you can tell us a bit about if we compare the research done with adult tissue and embryonic tissue, the advantages of the first and the limitations of the second.
Sure. You know, there's quite a bit of research with adult stem cells. And first of all, the difference between the two, and I have to admit, this is more things I've read about. I don't live in the research lab. But there's some people, they argue, like everything else in medicine, that because the concern is that the embryonic stem cells are better, that they're going to be better able to differentiate into all the other tissues. But I haven't seen that. The proof is not really there in the pudding as far as I can tell, because some of the best advances, in fact, I think almost all of the advances have been with using adult stem cells in this exact same research. Now, I want to be careful because something that I don't want to fall into a trap, just even if they were able to get good research out of the embryonic stuff, that wouldn't make it right. That principle of double effect, you know, that the ethicists talk about, where the good ends, you can't get there by a bad means. So, you know, just because we haven't had the advances with the embryonic stem cell that we had with adult stem cell, doesn't, even if you succeeded, wouldn't make it okay.
Again, if you want my stem cells, you can ask me. And I can say, of course.
Right.
But an embryo in the womb, like you said in Pope St. John Paul, quoting him, the embryo can't scream in pain. It does. That part of the body hasn't developed yet. There are no lungs,
You know-
or mouth. So it's important ethically
Yes.
that we give permission. That was the problem I had when the state of California allotted a couple $1 billion, I think $2-3 billion, to do this. I said, wait a second, this is a question that is beyond just the state making this kind of decision.
Well, it brings up another point, which is where do these embryos come from? And a lot of them are, quote, left over, as if an embryo could be left over, from in vitro fertilization. So these are embryos that the parents, and we allow parents to decide what's right for their children, the parents have said, here, please you can use these embryos for the research. Ugh.
Well, again, one of the things, so the folks understand, one of the reasons that the church is against in vitro fertilization, and you did a wonderful DVD on in vitro fertilization. What was it called again?
Echoes of Our Choice.
Echoes of Our Choice. And I think we have that available in that
Yes.
religious catalog, talking about some of the difficulties that go on with that. But one of the problems is just this. You have to fertilize a lot of eggs, and then you also have some that you don't use.
Right.
And, this opens up all sorts of ethical
Right.
and legal problems where I remember there was an argument over an inheritance.
Oh,
that
right.
the embryo, they were frozen embryos. Both parents died in a car wreck. And the question was, would they be able to be brought to birth so they could inherit the parents' wealth, which was considerable.
Oh my goodness.
This is back in the 80s that happened.
Well, and the church is not settled on this question because there are people who would like to volunteer to be surrogates, to have the embryos implanted in them, moms who said, who are having trouble with infertility.
Right.
And so here's fertilized eggs. Could they saying they're kind of
Could they be adopted?
right? And the church really hasn't come up formally with an answer yet.
Yeah, it's a complicated
It's
issue.
it's very complicated.
Let's, but overall, the church is negative on that, but it gets complicated. We have another caller. Hello, Chuck.
Hello,
Hey, where are you calling from?
Republic of Texas,
Ain't you something? What part of Texas you in?
Fredericksburg.
Oh, that Chuck in Texas. There's
Yeah.
more than one Chuck. They didn't have Chuck wagons. But Chuck, it's good to hear from you. So what is your question?
Yeah, many of the universities are working on 3D printers and making organs. Now, I'm just wondering if the young lady there has any experience or thoughts on bioengineering some of those 3D organs.
So are you familiar with that research?
I know of it, but I really don't know a whole lot
Yeah,
about it and what they're taking cells from and where that's coming from. That's just not my area.
Yeah, it's something they're trying to do with liver cells, but they're not.
Right. You still have to get enough cells, and you still have to get them in a medium to differentiate to become liver and then to grow correctly. But I don't know the ins and outs of a
Right.
printer and the 3D part of it. I don't think you can just, put them in one slot and poof, it comes out the other end, to my knowledge.
I'm sorry to laugh, but it sounds like something out of a commercial for the Xerox
Xerox.
machines or whatever company. But yeah, I think that you have to find out.
I don't know enough.
It sounds so amazing that I guess it made me laugh at the outset, but we'll see what they do with it.
Truly.
We have another person asking us a question from the studio audience who also happens to be a medical doctor. We're loaded with doctors today. And where are you from?
New Jersey.
New Jersey. Good to have you here, Dr. Lynn Frank. I've known you actually for a number of years.
Yes.
So what's your question?
My question is there any research being done that doesn't involve killing the embryos in the chimeric research? And the second part of that is you talked before about when you refer to zygotes and embryos, you kind of dehumanize, so it's kind of more acceptable to use them in that fashion. Do you think we're doing the same thing when we label people brain death, with brain death?
Interesting question.
Wow. Okay, so the first part of that,
And so folks understand, Dr. Lynn Frankie is a surgeon herself.
right.
And a very accomplished one.
So what's the other research? There's the stem cells. We have some amazing cures that have been done. We are able to produce the proteins for factor V Leiden with some of the deficiencies. Sorry, not factor V Leiden. Hemophilia, factor IX deficiency. That's come from this research. And there's many things like that. I also read something recently where a heart that was damaged from having a myocardial infarction, a heart attack, so there's literally dead parts of it. What if you injected it with stem cells to try to help regenerate the injured organ? So there's some wonderful stuff going on. That's just, like I say, this area of research is in its infancy. And it is exciting. But with that excitement, we got to get it right.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, there is just some incredible potential out there that I would, never want to stifle.
And I don't think it'd be out of the question to bring up the issue that some of the reason certain individuals may want to push it too fast is because it could also become very lucrative.
Sure.
That sometimes people can be, and I'm not thinking so much of the medical people, but sometimes people in bioindustry might be tempted to push things away from the ethical concern because it can be an issue of some very important financial reward. And we have to watch all of our motives. Whether it be I want to get a Nobel Prize or I want to win earn a lot of money. We have to keep the dignity of everybody very much, in play in all this. Well, people do. It's good to make a profit. There's nothing wrong with that, but it has to be ethical.
Sure. And gosh, we hate to, once again, paint with too broad a brush stroke.
Right.
Because I certainly know many researchers who are doing wonderful jobs, ethical people, asking good questions. And then there are some that are in a race.
Yep.
I want to get it first. And I'm annoyed that the guys in even another country who don't have the restrictions that we do, we're losing that race. We need to catch up quick. No.
Yeah.
No, we don't.
We see that phenomenon in the news industry. A lot of folks want to get it first as more important than getting it right.
Right.
And you have to get it right. Well, that's the same principle here. Get it right rather than get it first. That would be another way.
I agree.
We have a question from Susan. Susan, where are you calling from?
Mile High City of Denver.
Oh, Denver, Colorado, a beautiful city. And what is your question,
Yes.
Susan?
You mentioned, doctor, about the womb being a protector of the baby from the mother's immune system. Would a miscarriage be that the womb failed to protect that that developing baby from the immune system? And I'm a miracle as well. I was born with axial dystrophy, sent away for 20 years, thought to be retarded. Now I have 2 degrees.
Wow. God bless you. God bless you. See, you're why everybody must be respectful of dignity.
Absolutely.
You know, but even the ones who can't get 2 degrees, they're all worthy of dignity, but there might be surprises.
Boy, you know, it's an interesting question, you know, why a miscarriage? And there are so many reasons that can happen. So it's certainly not automatically a failure of the immune system. There is a state called hydrops fetalis, when the blood cells of the baby are a different blood type than mom, and the blood can sometimes mix, and the antibodies of one literally attack the other, and the baby can be very sick, and babies can die. We're better now at dealing with that, but that is an immune system event. My sense is most of the time it's not. I hate to say failure. The mom didn't do anything wrong. Right. The baby, often the DNA, the programming, just wasn't compatible with life. We never know. We're not in charge of that.
Yeah.
But
you know, oftentimes, you know, babies are miscarried because there's so serious developmental problems in major organ systems like lungs, etc.
Right, and you know, and we see that. You know, it's interesting though, and we know this sadly from the abortion literature, that the moms who were the cause of their baby's demise grieve so much differently than those that, if there was what we call a spontaneous abortion, if the baby just didn't make it, but the mom wasn't the cause.
Right.
They grieve very differently. And in fact, one of the things that I've had the privilege to be involved in is what we call perinatal palliative care, where sometimes moms get moms and dads, don't want to keep them out of this, but they get a diagnosis from an ultrasound or from some of the other prenatal testing that the baby has a diagnosis that's, quote, not compatible with life. Okay, first of all, your first diagnosis is, congratulations, it's a boy, or it's a girl, and then the other stuff comes. But even those pregnancies, when we walk with the parents through that, and we say, I don't know if the baby is going to come early, how long the baby will be with us, but we're still going to celebrate whatever time we have. And I've had parents who have called me to say, I am so grateful that we didn't just go with what we were being pushed to do, which is just terminate and be done. You know, that misplaced beneficence, once again, that Pope John Paul II would talk about, where they would talk about, oh, let's help you get through this so you can get on to having another pregnancy. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
This person, for whatever reason, okay, the packaging is a little different. So, but how do we care for that child for as long as we have the privilege of doing so? And that's a very different spin on, okay, please, you know, just off this because it's not working.
Right. I mean, any number of times, you know, in the emails you send asking for prayers and such, you also describe, you know, parents going through the process of holding a child for the last time.
Right.
And this is part of them being a parent.
Right.
You know, it's awful, and yet it's not the worst thing possible.
Yeah.
This is you know, it's not easy to hold a dying child.
No.
But it'd be worse to treat it like it were, well, it's a sick dog, just shoot it. No.
No, I find it probably one of the single greatest acts of courage when we work with a family, and as we all admit, much as it breaks our hearts, I have to admit what I can't fix.
Yeah.
Just because I have a ventilator or meds doesn't mean I can fix everything.
Yeah.
And in fact, when I talk with families, I always worry if I'm crossing a line where I'm prolonging suffering or prolonging death. I don't want to hurt your baby. So this is what I can help heal. Here's I think this is beyond medical technology. Don't miss holding your child.
Right.
And allow us, sometimes it's not giving up, it's appropriate to step back and say, you know what, I think I need to get out of God's way. Because I can honestly make a rock look like it's got vital signs. It doesn't mean I'm doing something beneficial.
And I think it's not only you getting, the parent getting the privilege of holding that child, but that child having the privilege of being held by the parents.
Right.
Knowing that, again, those little personalities are there.
Oh, what an amazing life if this life, from start to finish, is surrounded by love. I can't
No
ask
bullies.
for any greater gift.
You see, and to me, that's the choice. Either you get loved, or people who are bullies because you're so small say, no, just kill it. That's ultimate bullyism.
Yeah.
We don't tolerate it in grammar school and high school. We shouldn't tolerate it in neonatology either.
Right.
Let's take another caller. Hello, Marianne.
Hi, Father Pacwa. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. And what's your question?
My question is, I guess it's a question and a comment. In this day and age that we live in, we've become a society of disposability and recyclability. And unfortunately, that has translated into human life, that something is not perfect, it's not all shiny and new. And I was just hoping that you could either offer up a prayer, who we can pray to, and what we can do as an average citizen to spread the word that all life matters, and embrace the beauty and the grace and love of humanity, that God has created us all, and we're all worth something in every way, shape, and form. God bless you both.
Thank you. Let me just say this. I meet parents constantly who told me, doctor told me to abort my kid. I wouldn't do it. He's now 20 years old and bigger than I am.
Oh, yeah. We don't know a lot. I mean, fess up. I don't know when someone's going to for sure live or how long. I can tell you when an organ system is failing. I always like to talk with parents about, okay, if I do this treatment, this is what a good response looks like. Here's where we're not responding so well. Mm-hmm. And then, if that's the decision tree, then what am I going to do if we go, the baby does this way, or the baby goes this way? The baby's actually in charge. I just kind of pretend. But what I do or don't do has everything to do with how does the baby respond? Once again, how do we honor this life? How do I pay attention to what this life is offering, given that we do have some incredible medical devices and things to use, but just because I have a hammer doesn't mean I should use it or that it works. Once again, that I do think is my job as a physician, to say, okay, given this scenario and this human being in this setting, this is appropriate. Doing this is going to just do harm. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to gain people's trust so you don't know. When I meet parents, it's a crisis. My sister loves to point out that something's already gone wrong. Thank you if you get to be their doctor, which is true. But trying to establish that trust that I promise you, I am going to do absolutely everything we know how to do. And if I think another hospital can do it better, let me get you there. There's no ego with this. Mm-hmm. How do we help do what's best? But I'm also going to be honest with you, because of the dignity of this life and how much I care, it's not okay to say you have to keep doing because I want you to and because I don't want this ending. I don't want death. I'm not in charge of that.
Right. And I think, in terms of prayer, seeking the intercession of the holy innocents.
Yep.
That's a good thing. And there'll be other saints who, we can ask their intercession as well, including the guardian angels of every kid.
Absolutely.
So
I do a lot of kind of
Sure you do.
bowing to them as I go into a room to touch any individual baby and asking for help.
Well, Robin, we've run out of time. And let me give you all a blessing. Let's pray for the protection of human dignity and the cherishing of life that God gives us. And may Almighty God bless you all, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much for being with us, and thank all of you. You know, we can make this show possible because you make it possible. This network is brought to you by you, as Mother Angelica had set it up. So we ask you please to remember to keep us in between your gas bill, your electric bill, and your cable bill, if you pay cable, and then we'll be able to pay all of our bills too. God bless you and thank you.